What advice would you give to members of the military, both those who are relatively low and those who are in command, given the current status of our leadership, both in the military and on the civilian side?
Well, if you're about, I assume you're talking about Christians.
Yes.
Yeah, because it really seems like there is a intention on the part of the current leadership to utilize the military in such a way as to use it for anything other than fighting, and anything other than actually going after bad guys or anything, things like that. And it does seem that the woke folks have taken over at the highest levels of the military, and I don't know what the future is going to hold there. I think that this is one of not only military folks, but people in law enforcement, people in many situations. I look at the 200 armed officers that showed up at Grace Life Church in Canada on Sunday to man the barricades to keep those Christians from worshiping Christ. As I said, I hope they'll feel conviction in their souls for being for doing what's wrong in God's sight. But the question is going to be, at what point is that fidelity to Caesar being turned into a necessary offering of that pinch of incense? If you know what the pinch of incense is, what that means, how Caesar demanded that people would offer that pinch of incense. And it was an act of worship. It was an act of idolatry. And the early Christians would not do that. Now, it's interesting. Jesus, obviously, in talking to soldiers, didn't say you need to just stop being a soldier and things like that. He didn't say that. But when it comes to the point where the government is demanding that Christians, for example, persecute other Christians, Christians pursue other Christians, Christians not worship, or that you not think in unapproved ways in regards to, for example, well, I showed a picture on the Dividing Line last week of a number of alleged women who are actually men, and they're in military uniform. And I could very easily see situations where a Christian, it's going to be demanded of a Christian that you identify this person as a woman and address this person as a woman. And that's where the individual has to start making the decision. Where do I draw the line? When am I offering a pinch of incense to Caesar that violates my conscience and violates my fealty to Christ? That becomes the issue. And it's amazing that this has happened as quickly as it has. But this has been planned for a long, long time, and it's just now being worked out in a very, very rapid way. And so I think Christian soldiers, Christians in the military, really, really need to be thinking far deeper than we've ever been challenged to before in regards to the nature of what it means to say that Jesus Christ is Lord, and that under his lordship I can serve my country. But what happens when that country becomes dead set upon attacking Jesus Christ and his people? That's when things change. And so when a Roman soldier wasn't being commanded to do that which was evil, well, then you could be a Roman soldier. But we know of a number of stories of Roman soldiers, once persecution became empire-wide, who paid the cost and were executed for refusing to do what was commanded of them. Because have you ever heard the story? I haven't read it in years, so I would slaughter it if I tried to go through it again. But an amazing story about, and it may be mythical. I haven't done the close study to see how close it is, but a story of Roman soldiers that were involved in tracking down Christians and executing them, not with the sword, but by forcing them out upon a frozen lake at night to where they would simply die of the cold. And when one of the soldiers who had heard preaching before heard them singing together out upon the ice, he tore off his armor and in just his tunic ran out and joined them to die with them on the ice. That kind of act of true conversion is something that makes it down through history. We know almost nothing about any of the soldiers who killed Christians, but we do know about the soldiers who refused to do so and then were converted as well. So there's a tremendous amount to be thinking about in light of the fact that we see this tremendous shift in the nature of the government and what the government is intent upon doing, and that is many people joined a government that was based upon certain Christian principles, and now the government has turned against those Christian principles. And so, what do we do in that situation? When do we offer that pinch of incense? And of course, we can't. Though I'll be honest with you, I will be absolutely honest with you, and there's going to be some people who will be really angry with me for this. But I was watching an interview, and someone else said this, and so since I had come to this conclusion a long time ago, I was like, well, okay, there's some smart guys there who have come to the same conclusion that I have a long time ago. I think today we would have major big EVA organizations that would argue that the early church got it wrong and that offering a pinch of incense really wouldn't be all that big of a deal. That it would be okay to get along, Romans 13, be in submission, that type of thing. And the early church, as the early church en toto, said, nope, can't do it. And so that's something we have to think about as well.
Yeah, when you said that a lot of these people signed up for or swore allegiance to the Constitution, recognizing the Christian worldview that was behind it, but they see where it's going now, and there's that obvious conflict in between. Yep,
definitely. That's a tough situation to be in, no two ways about it. But the change has happened rapidly. I mean, it's not that we didn't see some of the signs a decade ago.
Granted.
But I think if you're like me, you were like, but it just can't happen here. And I was wrong. Been wrong about a lot of things. That was one I was wrong about. Mm-hmm. Once you change this, once you turn the society into a secular society that does not believe there will be a day of judgment, you can do anything with them, because ugly bags of mostly water don't know anything about honor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's truly ironic because I have seen, at least in my experience, a lot of the people when I was going through basic and involved in various aspects like that. People were far more inclined to talk about spiritual things in the context of the military. I guess it's just because of the fact that, going to church is a way to get out of doing some cleaning, but also because we all know it's true. But the other side of it is that the reality of death is just so clear and in front of you in that context.
Sure. You bet. That's why we had chaplains and things like that, and that's why they had to try to totally corrupt the chaplaincy corps too, by inserting Wiccans and every type of LGBTQ whatever into the middle of it. But that had always been a part of the military, was because you're dealing with death much more up closely than anybody else is. And that's true. So lots more to be said about that, Andrew, but hopefully those will be some good ideas.
All right. Appreciate you, Dr. White.
Thanks. All right. God bless.